DM'd me on Instagram. She lives with a rare disease plus other painful chronic illnesses. Gastroparesis is one of them. She was in the middle of a pain flare, so she reached out to her doctor for help on the patient portal. The doctor reviewed her history, and this was the doctor's response. Whenever we see this meaning the pain flare, there is a very high likelihood of some significant personal, emotional, or physical or sexual trauma. It's always preferable to address past trauma, and this is the ultimate cure of the pain. Excuse me? Now, Dr. Mark Edward Babbo, I think you're with Kaiser. Are you telling me that this woman's gastroparesis is caused by her past trauma? And did you attend medical school? It's getting worse. I guess now I need to get legislation to stop gaslighting.
Well, hi, welcome back, everyone. I switched to this camera because I missed the days of old of using actual UHD. Did you know that hazel eyes are actually like an extremely rare like genetic mutation? And that, because I always thought it was weird that, like, I have gold flakes in my eyes, but apparently having gold flakes in your eyes is something that people with hazel eyes have. It was interesting. Lady I'm friends with on Facebook gave me an article about it because she has hazel eyes too. And so I thought it was kind of cool. So this video, this is a real ethical fucking conundrum. I want to refrain from using the screenshots I have from the discussion because the particular psychologist involved is known for getting really, really fussy when people disagree with him or have a counterpoint to him or skepticism or criticism, and has a tendency to launch flagging campaigns or try to take their stuff down for misinformation or what have you. Because, when somebody's wrong or inaccurate and spreading misinformation, debunking it is so hard that you don't actually correct them and say, well, you're wrong and here's the reasons why, etc., etc. Here's the study, here's this and that to show evidence. I'm not going to buy like the whole. I'm a psychologist. I know what I'm talking. Okay, that's appeal to the authority, or that's a fallacy. We don't do that. We don't say, well, just because you're a doctor, just because you're a psychologist, automatically you're right. No. That's not how that's a known fallacy. We don't do that. Argument from authority, appeal to authority, that kind of thing. So there was a conversation that I took part in where the topic of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, comes up. And it was used in context of using cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, cognitive behavioral therapy, as I've understood it, has been used to help people who have lived through childhood psychological trauma. So the best way to put cognitive behavioral therapy, I think that me and this other person involved in the thread agreed upon, was that it is trying to, what was it? Let me see here if I shoot. The best way to put cognitive behavioral therapy is this: get the patient to deal with their feelings in a less destructive way. We agreed. That's the best way to put it. Believe me, I have a ton of screenshots of this conversation. So anyway, okay. So I told him that the way what he was trying to use it for anxiety and chronic pain, which, the moment you say using cognitive behavioral therapy for chronic pain sounds kind of weird. It all came from somebody saying, has anyone felt like oxycodone caused anxiety or panic attacks? My response was personally not being treated for pain at all. I think high levels of pain and body damage can cause panic attacks. Thinking of things like, oh my God, I could live another X years with this, or what does my future look like, or am I going to die, or am I going to end up homeless, or what does further damage look like? And this person said, this psychologist that we're not going to talk about, we're not going to mention, responds by saying, however, do panic attacks associated with catastrophic thinking not respond well to cognitive behavioral therapy? The answer to that, I think, is yes, because we are talking about generalized panic and anxiety disorder. Like that would be hard to use cognitive behavioral therapy on. So, I said from my experience with that therapy, therapy can help you manage, cope, and deal in healthier ways. Trying to ignore your problems and not deal with them at all, which can be harmful. I have generalized panic and anxiety disorder, so a little different there for me. And trying to figure out the order these go in. I was trying to get across that using cognitive, the problem that I had was the idea of using cognitive behavioral therapy to suppress anxiety that is irrational anxiety. For example, having anxiety about becoming homeless is that's a pretty rational response to that. Having anxiety over further deterioration of your body is perfectly reasonable to have anxiety over. There's examples of anxiety and depression and anger that I would say, just because somebody emotes these things doesn't automatically mean that they're bad. There's pretty good reasons why someone would have anxiety or depression or be angry. And I brought up injustices. I think is one of the things that I brought up here, and that's and so we get to this point where I say, I'm talking about it. That's what I'm trying to explain. Suppressing that would be or would not be psychologically healthy. Using CBT to suppress that I would consider unethical if that anguish was causing if that anguish was causing you to drink heavily and make poor decisions, then yeah, maybe CBT is a good cognitive behavioral therapy is a good idea in that situation. But simply feeling due to injustice is pretty normal. Now, this is where it gets weird. He says, however, based on research done at McGill by doctors Mick Sullivan and Zena Trost, feelings of injustice were found to be predictive of failure to recover from chronic pain. that kind of made me a little worried. I told him, that's dark. I'm not saying you're saying this, but what that sounds like to me is we want everyone in society to be indifferent and or complacent, and seems like something a totalitarian dictator would do to their population to make sure they never questioned atrocities. He says, no, nothing dark about it. Mick and Xena are interested in finding psychological mechanisms that perpetuate pain and help patients deal with them. Nothing totalitarian going on, just applied science. Well, the thing is that science, typically is neither ethical nor unethical. And actually, who is it? It's Neil deGrasse Tyson has brought this up many, many times. It's where you get into efficacy is what you do with it. Like people asking, well, is being homosexual, is this nature or is it nurture? Is it something we can fix or not? And the thing is that, science can answer those questions, but what is the motive behind asking them in the first place? If you're just trying to do that so you can suppress LGBTQ rights, then I would say that that's unethical, because ultimately, when we look at homosexuality or LGBTQ people in general, it's neither ethical or unethical. It's what we consider to be morally and ethically neutral. It's usually the religious folks or who have some kind of bigotry towards LGBTQ people that assess some kind of ethical or moral negative to it, but can't really explain what that is, other than Bible, which isn't that's not a very good reason. There's a lot of things in the Bible that we don't challenge. Like, there's things in the Bible that are unethical that nobody challenges today. Is like, we don't do that today because it's unethical. Nobody challenges that. Nobody says, well, but it's in the Bible. No one does that. Well, I mean, there's probably some nuts out here. So, this was very concerning to me. That the perception of injustice makes it so that chronic pain patients cannot recover from chronic pain. Does that mean that if no one had a sense of injustice, that chronic pain wouldn't exist, then only acute pain would ever exist? And it's also deeply implying that pain is purely psychological and not physiological, and I don't think that's the case. I'm pretty sure that if I take a hammer and go along the vertebrae in your spine and with a hammer and just crack each and every single one of them one by one very slowly, it's going to be very, very painful, and that pain is not psychological. That's very physiological, because along with each shattering of those vertebrae, you're also going to experience a lot of compression in the of the spinal column, which is where your central nervous system runs, and that could lead to compression of nerves. So this is kind of some things that I have to say on this. Hopefully we can get into further discussion about it in the live stream that I have planned with Cassandra. We'll see if that happens or not. First post I made, okay, so we're just supposed to be complicit with everything. That's a question. To this, this psychologist says, feelings of injustice were found to be predictive of failure to recover from chronic pain, which kind of defeats the whole premise of chronic pain. The reason why it's chronic pain is because it doesn't go away. That's why it's chronic pain. It's for life. It doesn't go away. So the other reason we know it's not psychological, purely psychological pain, is because there are chronic pain conditions that form that are not visible, but we can see them with an MRI of what's causing the pain. So the patient's like, I don't know, there's just pain, I don't know why. So if it is purely psychological, why is it something that's taking place that you can't see, causing tremendous amounts of pain? And then we hook the person up to an MRI and go, well, that's why you have massive venous, arterial, and nerve compression. So yeah, of course, the patient wouldn't see that, but the perceived pain is still there. So it's like, how is it purely psychological? Because I know the pain, because the patient knows the pain is there, but it's not actually visible. Then there's symptoms that do become visible, such as atrophy, contractures, and it would be pretty nifty if you're almost suggesting we have psychological powers, you guys. You can use your mind to literally make your muscle tissue disappear in 1 month. As far as I know, the only thing that can do that is atrophy from nerve compression, or you can also have atrophy from not using the muscle, or both. But this is sort of suggesting that you could do it with mind powers. I guess we're all Jean Grey, whatever that, what was it, telekinetic, and we just don't know it. But okay, so I go on to say, I really don't care if there's a study on it, and I haven't looked at the study. If you want to go ahead and look at the study, go ahead and look for it. Like the study are going to be looking. I don't know. So I have yet to look at it, but I just got kind of concerned about the ethical principle from the get-go. So let's talk about that. I find that incredibly hard to believe that pure psychological blah 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 can stop the various amounts of chronic pain conditions caused by so many different things. The thing that absolutely frightens me is the idea of societal indifference. So we are to not care about LGBTQ people having their rights taken, arrested again just for existing and being killed. We are not to care about the exploitation of workers, which often leads to bodily damage that causes chronic pain conditions to begin with. We are not to care about Nazis throwing marginalized people into ovens. These are questions. We are not to care about how the system is killing chronic pain patients. Are we not supposed to care that thousands have no access to health care, even with health insurance, based on the sole fact they are chronic pain patients, chronically ill or disabled? Are we not supposed to care that fascists are trying to take our rights and the country? All because a sense or a feeling of injustice supposedly makes it so we'll never recover from chronic pain. That's absolutely absurd, and I will not comply with that. I don't give a fuck if I let go of my sense of injustice, if that would cure me of chronic pain. I don't care. I'm not gonna lay down like a carpet and let people walk over me. That's absolutely fucking ridiculous. I'm not gonna let that happen. I don't want to let that happen. I will fight. I will not lay down like a doormat and let anyone take over my life, honor, integrity, and as I'm a minority, being a homosexual male, just because you don't want to prescribe a goddamn opiate medication to manage my chronic pain. I will not stand idly by in complacency watching my brothers and sisters die. I have their human... I will not stand idly by watching them die and have their human rights violated and tormented just so you can avoid having to prescribe an addictive substance controlled and regulated by the FDA to treat pain from a chronic pain condition. I will absolutely not make myself numb or callous to injustice with the piss-fucking poor excuse that it could possibly make it so I don't recover from chronic pain. I really doubt my sense of injustice is what's compressing my brachial plexus. That's what's compressed on me. This area has severe compression, which has veins, my main artery, and 5 different nerve trunks that run through it. I seriously doubt that if I don't have a sense of injustice, my pain from nerve compression, atrophy, muscle spasms, and nerve damage would somehow go away. This just sounds like you want me to be silent, content, indifferent, complicit, complacent, a cute piece of propaganda to get a population to be blissfully unaware of our own demise. No, absolutely the fuck not. I do not think so. I'm not going to do that. If you want proof, look at what this psychologist, he runs a news, not going to say, I don't want to fuck with that. He does lectures to med students across the U.S., sits on several pain councils, including the CDC's. He's going around telling people this. People with a sense of injustice. Studies show, well, if they have a sense of injustice, they'll never recover from chronic pain. So you're not supposed to have a sense of injustice, you guys. You're not supposed to have that. POCs, LGBTQ people, women. We're not supposed to have a sense of injustice. Because if we become chronic pain patients, then we'll never recover from chronic pain. And then they might have to prescribe us an opiate or an opioid medication. Oh no. Oh, heaven forbid. We can't have that. It's much better that, we just, stick our head in the sand, be indifferent, be much better. Much better. If we just ignore injustices, don't have a sense of injustice. I don't know if this guy told me that because he wants me to use philosophy to debunk it, or if he really thinks that's acceptable. Imagine this. Take what he said about using cognitive behavioral therapy to subvert someone's sense of injustice, because supposedly it keeps one from recovering from chronic pain. Now put that in context with what they did in Nazi Germany. Or put this in the context of people who have substance use disorders. Why don't we use cognitive behavioral therapy on people with substance use disorders? Why are we using cognitive behavioral therapy on chronic pain patients so we don't have to prescribe a pain medication, but we won't use cognitive behavioral therapy on people with substance use disorders to get them to stop abusing these things? That's an interesting question. But think if they had this study in Nazi Germany and Waffen SS psychologist, medical professor, uses this notion and tries to tell the populace, but people with a sense of injustice won't ever recover from, if they become a chronic pain patient, they'll never recover from their chronic pain. Imagine what that would have done. Oh yes, I had a certain doctor telling me that the perception of injustice can make it to where one will never recover from pain. Oh yeah, that happened. This was someone's response to me on the topic. Was this doctor from another country? My son-in-law is from Lebanon. He's an OBGYN and performs C-sections. The strongest pain meds he prescribes is ibuprofen. Obviously, this is something that they would teach them. One day he's going to get to that point in his life because of his profession where he's going to need opioids or stronger medications for his pain. I often wonder why it is such a big deal for him to prescribe 14 Percocets for a woman who has just been cut open and had a C-section. It makes no sense to me. My response is, no, the psychologist I had this conversation, he's from the US. My concern with this type of thinking is it's basically saying we should be submissive towards our own demise. Since it comes from academia, and there's a lot of propaganda coming from academia that I've seen that is just flat out lies. Like the person who's saying it is either lying, they're stupid, or they're ignorant, and they've been misinformed. But I've seen a pain management specialist that goes around the nation teaching medical students, med students, and he was saying things about buprenorphine that are just not true. Like, oh, buprenorphine isn't addictive. Yeah, it is. Actually, buprenorphine, and it is an opiate. I know a lot of people think it's not an opiate. It is an opiate. They make it, there's 47 alkaloids to the papaver somniferum, and one of those alkaloids, I think it's thebaine, that is used to make buprenorphine. Since it comes from academia, it puts us chronic pain patients into a trap. If we fight for our rights, we are exacerbating our own chronic pain due to our sense of injustice. Likewise, allowing them to steamroll us into the ground makes it seem as though nothing was wrong. Like I said, it asks us to be complicit in our own demise. Who does that? Apply that logic or context to Jewish people in Nazi-occupied Germany. You see what I'm saying? In Nazi Germany, SS Waffen medical officer says, psychological studies show people with a I'm not going to do a German accent, higher sense of injustice will never be cured or recover from their Jewish beliefs and atone for what they've done. But through cognitive behavioral therapy, we can curtail your Jewish behavior and you're well on your way to being normal. If you think what we are doing to Jews is a human rights violation, though, you're beyond reproach. As I've said, this, with a sense of injustice, according to our studies, will never recover. See how that sounds? Pretty nasty. It's like saying, we don't want you to fight for your rights, and if you do, you're the problem. No, fuck that. I'm not going to lay down like a doormat and allow someone to take my rights, liberties, and freedoms, and possibly even kill me. So I hope I articulated that correctly, but can you imagine? This is what they're saying. Like, if you feel that you're like think about the video I uploaded of the woman. people feeling that a sense of injustice because of what they did to her, whether you think the cops are culpable, whether you think the hospital's culpable, you think both are culpable. If you have a sense of injustice and are, urging on the family, oh yeah, you should sue. If you become a chronic pain patient, according to this study, oh, you'll never recover. Because chronic pain, it's all psychological. So you need to stop doing that. Stop saying that they treated her wrong. No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. They gave you too much NSAIDs for your pain, and now you have your stomach lining is gone, and you have ulcers in your stomach and your esophagus, esophageal rupture, and renal failure, kidney failure, and your liver is starting to damage, and you're throwing up stomach acid, blood, and bile, which looks like coffee grounds, and you probably only gave you 5 years to live. Being mad about that. If you're mad about it, you're succumbing to your chronic pain. You have to let it go so that your chronic pain goes away. What the fuck? How is that ethical? How on earth is that not dark? So, yeah, I've yet to look into that study, but, it seems like we have forgotten that psychology is a soft science for a reason. I mean, there are things that I've seen in psychology that were passed off as, this is pure fact 20 years ago, and now we've come back to it and be like, no, that wasn't so correct, actually. There's interesting things that we see, patterns in human behavior, but we always find an outlier. Because human behavior is very, very hard to predict. There are certain aspects of human behavior that have to do with our species, like love, the way that we love our children and stuff like that. But overall, it's actually pretty difficult. Like schizophrenia, there are things that, like, here in American culture, you could take things that people do in other cultures religiously that are not part of the Abrahamic religions, that sacrificing weird animals and bathing in blood and stuff, or what, I can't think of anything off the hand, but there's some weird stuff. If they were to do that over here, we might call that, psychosis. But what is it that when we go over there, because it's part of a religion, no, that's not psychosis, that's not weird. But yet, they still have examples of schizophrenia in their culture. There's a psychiatrist from Oxford University that has a lecture about that. It's on YouTube. You can watch it, actually. It's pretty interesting. He talks about that. So that's why it's a soft science, because there's always outliers, and this stuff is just like I don't know that you can outright say, well, people with a sense of injustice, they'll never recover from chronic pain. Whereas I think probably we've lost the fucking narrative at this point. It's like people probably don't recover from chronic pain because, well, there's permanent damage to the body, which, the nerves tell the brain all the time I don't like, which is pain. If I have a muscle spasm here, it'll crush a nerve and pain. And the more I use my arm, the more likely I'm going to have a muscle spasm. It's physiological, it's not psychological. I can't sit here and concentrate on having a muscle spasm and then go, no, that's not how it works. It's absolutely absurd. So I want to give a moment and show you a video from, well, that seems cheap of me to do. I will leave links to Claudia Merandi's video in the description so you can hear her take from the doctor-patient forum on Psychology and Pain. She's come out with several others. She makes videos like that because she mostly does them on TikTok, where they're really small, short videos, and uploads them onto YouTube. So poops them out pretty frequently. But she's given a take on this, but I think it's absolute horse shit. I'm pretty sure if I went to my psychologist and said, I'm in chronic pain, so I guess I need psychological help to get that pain to go, and my psychologist would be like, that's not what I do. You need to see an actual like primary care, family care physician, orthopedic specialist, something like that. I deal with, psychology. I what's in your head. Getting people to deal with their emotions and their behaviors in healthy ways instead of just self-destructive ways or destructive towards other people. That's what I do. I can't magic your pain away. I guarantee you that's what he'd say. And I think that any psychologist that would promote something like, oh, well, psychology is what causes your pain, I think that they're a charlatan. It's amazing how much things have changed, even in academia. I looked up just 2 years ago, the Mayo Clinic, chronic fatigue syndrome. Oh, well, chronic fatigue syndrome is often caused by chronic pain. Looked it up recently. It changed. Same source, Mayo Clinic. Well, chronic fatigue syndrome is thought to be caused by chronic pain, but we ultimately don't know what causes it. Change. So now they're running with the narrative that pain is purely psychological. It's like, pain is purely psychological. I would think if that were the case, then torture and stuff, it wouldn't work. Because you could psychologically train yourself to avoid the pain. But hey, guess what? It works. So I don't know that there's any evidence, but I find that completely unethical to tell somebody that a sense of injustice is psychologically unhealthy. To me, that's you're asking people to be complicit in their own demise at that point. No, screw that. People are angry for a reason. It's because we're being steamrolled and there's people who are walking on our backs with knife point stilettos. It's fucked. That's fucked. I can't stand idly by and let this happen. Continue to watch people die because they can't get adequate health care, their pain under control, and lose their job and become homeless. And if you want me to be complicit in that, that's just not going to happen. I guess you're just going to have to get over it and prescribe me a goddamn fucking pain medication, an opiate or an opioid. I guess we're just going to have to do that. And you can just get over it. Because, no, I'm not going to allow people to die just because you don't want me to have a sense of injustice. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. With that, out.